Yeah, if I go to the gym 5 days in a row, on the sixth day, I'm getting myself an egg McMuffin because
That's right.
I do like the English muffin. It's so European, so international. So yeah, I'm gonna be treating myself because it's got English muffin and Canadian bacon.
Oh, it's so cosmopolitan.
And here we go again, against the odds. It doesn't take a genius. Here are Mark and Mike.
Ramsey!
Marshall, a pleasure to see you yet again on our 200 and something podcast. This has been going a while. We've got a real habit going here.
Oh, we do. We have a nice habit going, and wow, what a segue into the day's topic. Yeah. So yeah, we've talked about this before, habits, but it just keeps coming up.
Yeah.
And so had some new epiphanies. We're conducting a course, and within that course we have a book club.
Yes.
Which we highly recommend. If you've got an organization, you got a group, a team, a department, a gaggle, a herd, a pod, then assign a book. We assign the reading in such a way that we allow plenty of time for people to digest. Everybody reads at different levels.
Mhm.
And so we're going back through James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and it's just fascinating. One of the things he starts off with in the book is he says change can take years before it happens all at once. It's like, I saw this documentary on Nashville, and stars coming out, singing stars coming out of Nashville, and they studied it, and they interviewed all these people that had made it, and it takes on average 10 years to be an overnight success in Nashville.
Yeah.
So they waited tables, sang in clubs, wrote songs for a decade, and then once they burst on the scene, they were like, oh, it just happened all at once.
Yeah, and the musicians are that way, right? They have a habit of playing. My papa, who had a lot of connections in Nashville, knew some people, played with some people, played with Kitty Wells, by the way, and Loretta Lynn.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
He was on a first name basis with Ralph Stanley, by the way, not to brag. Anyway, but yeah,
the guy from Kiss.
So that's wow. I'm gonna really that set me back. I'm gonna have to think about that.
You're picturing your papa in Kiss makeup.
Oh my gosh. Ever tell you about the time that I stayed on the same hotel floor with Kiss?
No.
Yeah, my whole family, for some reason we were not taken off the floor that Kiss had rented out in the Tulsa, Oklahoma Hilton when we were there for one of Dad's business trips. They left us on the floor, moved everybody else off, and it was us and Kiss. And they had all their rooms open and curtains up, and you could hear guitar music all over the place and women wandering around. To be honest, they were very polite. They were very polite. But that was a very weird experience in my youth.
Yes, I can understand that.
But speaking of guitar, that was my papa. Just whenever he sat down, if he was just sitting there, he was very soon playing guitar. I have memories of like he just couldn't stop playing guitar. And of course, the reality is he absolutely could stop playing guitar. He chose to keep going, and he was always trying new things and trying different chord progressions and different licks that he had learned. Did that his whole life, basically. So it was a habit. It was a thing he constantly did.
Oh yeah. Well, and you see these people, these overnight successes, and they seem very polished, and they seem like they've got it all together. And it's only because there's years and years of repetition.
Yep.
Where the Beatles had played for years before they burst onto the scene.
Right.
And you're like, these guys are amazing. Well, they're not just starting out.
Right.
They've been doing this for quite a while. And we're fond of talking about, when we talk about change with our clients, we're talking about, the same idea of we don't know why change happens when it does. Mm-hmm. And it's the analogy of the stone cutter. And he's got this big block of granite, and he's whacking away with it, a chisel and a hammer. And he hits it. And at one point, the last hit, it just splits open.
Yep.
And you're like, well, why did it?
Why that one?
Yeah, why that hit? Why not the one before it? Why not two more? And it wasn't that hit. It was all the hits that came before it that led up to this breakthrough.
Yeah, I think that happened in America. That's one of the things that early on the people researching, why is America working? Like this shouldn't have worked. But in the 1830s, I think we've done some episodes about it. Alexis de Tocqueville comes from France. He's this aristocratic lawyer, and he's come to study America. And that was one of his insights. He said that we had been in the habit for so long of governing ourselves because we were across the ocean from, the king of England, that we could. So he said the people are in America, they are enlightened, alert to their own interests, and accustomed to thinking about them. We had gotten in the habit of like, no king's going to come along and solve our problem here in the town. We're going to have to do it ourselves. And so they got accustomed to doing it. And accustomed, I think, is another way of talking about habits. You're just getting into a custom. You're getting into a routine. This is just how we do things around here. It's culture.
Oh yeah. Well, it's fascinating that we've read so many books and we've utilized so many books in our workshops that all talk about different things exactly the same way. So you came up with a different word for it. Some of the words that there's actually the word habits, and then in some cases we use the word activities, and then in other cases we use lead measures, and then in other areas we call them inputs.
Yep.
They're all the same thing. Yeah, it's like, well, I've got to write a book on this topic. We will change the language. We'll modify the language so it looks like this is all brand new stuff. It's all exactly the same thing, whether it's 4 disciplines of execution, atomic habits, Herb Maslow, intentionality.
Yep.
It's just countless books all saying that the same thing, right? You got to have goals. And James Clear makes a point that, right, winners and losers both start out the season with goals.
Yep.
They start out, we're going to win a championship. We're going to the playoffs. The only difference, it's not the goal that matters. The goal sets direction. But the thing that is the difference are he calls them systems, right? The systems, which is another word for habits, lead measures, inputs, activities, whatever you want to call it. So it's just insane that the guys who are more consistent with their activities, with their inputs, with their habits, have a better chance of getting to their goals than those who don't.
So could I give a suggestion of a very common lead measure for a manager, an activity, an input, a behavior, a habit? Coaching. We're so used to having managers say, I'm going to have a coaching session. And it's like this build up to a moment where they have to go. It's basically a remedial course, right? It's a talking to. It's something where something bad's happened, so now we're going to have to quote unquote coach you.
Yeah, it's that meeting where Jesus comes.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, we're having that come to Jesus meeting.
That's it.
Why does he have to be there?
That's it.
Like it's that special. It just the fact that it is special means you're not doing it correctly.
Exactly. We're very fond of Michael Bungay Stanier's book, The Coaching Habit, and it's called that for that reason. Like if you could just get some muscle memory because you keep asking the same questions, you keep carving out the same amount of time, you keep shutting up when they are supposed to talk and you're supposed to be silent. There are all these coaching habits that you can get into that will be that stone cutter cutting away at the stone, and eventually you're going to have this breakthrough moment. But you won't have it the first time, the second time, even the third time, I think. But as you get into the habit of doing it, so many things change for that person. They get accustomed to thinking about things, right? They're getting into a habit of thinking about how they could improve. So it's a habit for you that becomes a habit for them. Habits are everything.
Oh yeah. Well, and you think about, one of the reasons managers say they don't coach is because of time.
Yeah.
Just don't have time. I'm working on all this other stuff. And the reality is, what we figured out is that a consistent coaching habit where you have a scheduled conversation, whether you call it a conversation or coaching or whatever, but you just have a time set aside where you're going to touch base with each person that you're in charge of. What you find is those people know that conversation's coming up, and they know they're going to have your undivided attention for a certain period of time, so they don't bother you in the interim.
That's right.
with things like, hey, you got a minute, which is never a minute.
Right.
And so yeah, you all of a sudden your time management, and one of the things that we find with this, if you start this coaching habit, is that the first meetings tend to go long.
Yep.
Once they figure out that you really care and that you really want to figure out how we can all do better, yeah, all of a sudden they unload a bunch of stuff on you and think, well, I don't have time to do this every week or every other week. And lo and behold, you find out that, yeah, as we solve and resolve and get on the same page with a number of topics, the session becomes shorter and more focused and even more effective. So don't be surprised as once you reach that point where they open up to you, the floodgates pour out. And but it won't always be that way, right? We'll resolve some stuff, we'll clear the air about some stuff, and then we can focus on what's going on in the moment or long term or whatever it is that we want to focus on.
Yeah, until you get the hurdles out of their way and do the things that they can't do, they're not going to be able to grow. But once you get through that and take care of those things that they bring to your attention that are stopping them, stymieing them, now they can grow. They're at a higher performance level and don't need you as much for those things, and it gets better. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We talked extensively with managers about scoreboards.
Yeah.
And it comes from the idea of the 4 disciplines of execution. You got your lag measures, which are the number of sales, gross revenue, whatever, all those things that everybody talks about. And we've encouraged managers for years, in some cases, to focus on the activities, the habits, and man, do they struggle with that.
Yep.
And they, that's not just our opinion. They tell you, I don't know how to track it. I don't know how to measure it. I don't know how to, put it in place. And so this is something that most managers that we work with, they struggle mightily with this.
So very much related, could I throw out another common behavior, habit, lead measure that I think is something our clients often tell us is a big issue? Planning meetings for time management, for organizing your calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Having a conversation where I say, what are the things that I've got to do? What are the things that I hope to do? And how important are each of these things? How urgent are each of these things? Let me map out my calendar a little bit to where I can say, well, that book isn't going to write itself. I've got to get that on my calendar. I've got plenty of other things I could do. But if I'm going to write that book, or if I'm going to change that sales process, or if I'm, going to do regular coaching, I'm going to have to put that on the calendar. They're just not going to, there's no need for them to happen unless I choose to make them happen. So, I think that's the way the 4 disciplines of execution talks about it, is that the 4 disciplines of execution are the things that really need to happen. They meet at the corner of really need to happen. I'm butchering this. I think it's at the corner of really important and not going to happen unless I do them. That's it.
Yep.
And so, but again, you have to get into a habit of sitting there and thinking about your calendar and what you have coming up. Like none of the things are going to happen. None of the habits are going to be put on your calendar unless you take time to say, what do I need to put on my calendar? That itself is a habit.
Oh yeah. And we know that all the greats, the CEOs that have been successful, all the leaders that they don't have a to-do list, they have a calendar.
That's right.
And their calendar should have on it the things that are priorities.
Yeah.
And so if you want to meet with your people once a week, schedule it on your calendar.
That's it.
It's as simple as that. Another thing that we seldom talk about, but I think is just as important, is we have no problem celebrating and rewarding people who achieve things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you were number one in sales, you led the region, you were number one in, you know, this product or whatever the thing might be. So along with you know, tracking these activities, these habits, what we do a poor job is rewarding them.
Hmm.
And rewarding habits even
Yeah.
when they're unsuccessful.
Yep. Yep.
What?
Yep.
You know, so if the activity, you know, in the long term will make a difference, in the short term, I have to recognize the completion of the activity, even if it didn't result in the sale, the improvement, the efficiency gains, whatever, you know,
Yeah.
productivity thing you were looking for out of that activity. But if I know the activity to be solid, then yeah, it hasn't worked in the short term, but I know if they continue to do it, it will, you know, in the long term, it will pan out. I need to reward that. I need to, you know, and the reward could be as simple as acknowledging, hey,
Right.
you know, I appreciate that you sent out 10 proposals this week.
Yeah.
I know you haven't gotten it, you know, we haven't booked any business. You know, no client has written us a check yet. But the fact that you're doing this activity, I truly appreciate it. And I know in the long run, it's going to pay off. And
And
so yeah, just rewarding the activity, acknowledging the activity
yeah,
as success.
acknowledging it for yourself too, right? If you are aware that you're getting into a better habit for exercise, for time management, for coaching, yeah, you know, the pounds haven't dropped off yet. You know, your chaos of your schedule hasn't quite gotten all the way better yet. Your employees haven't suddenly started growing, but you need to acknowledge I'm doing the things that lead to the things. This is good for me. I'm glad I'm doing these things. And maybe you need to reward yourself. Depends on your personality type, I guess. You know,
Mhm.
I will take a break and get a cup of coffee if I do this, you know, in the morning, whatever the habit happens to be.
Oh yeah.
Something simple like that.
Yeah. If I go to the gym 5 days in a row, on the sixth day, I'm getting myself an egg McMuffin because
That's right.
I do like the English muffin. You know, it's so European, so international. So yeah, I'm going to be treating myself because, you know, it's got English muffin and Canadian bacon.
Oh,
It's
so cosmopolitan.
it's like a world adventure right there in just in your mouth. So yeah, whatever that thing might be, yeah, because the results aren't there, but you know that if you're on the right path and it's the right habit, the results will come.
Yeah.
And not allowing setbacks,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to distract you. Well, you know, I didn't go to the gym, I didn't make my phone calls yesterday, so I'm never going to do it again.
Right.
You know, the I love that the line from Ted Lasso, where, you know, if you make a mistake, you know, be a goldfish. You know, what animal has the shortest memory in the world? The
Oh,
goldfish. So yeah, worry, you know, think about it and then let it go.
yeah,
The next customer, the next ball, the next proposal has no idea that the last one didn't work.
that's right.
And so, yeah, approaching that, you know, continuing to do the habit, knowing that over time it will be successful, and not letting the setbacks, you know, drag you down or take you off of your plan to continue to do that behavior.
Yeah, I think we talked about this recently. I can't remember what we were referencing, but you know, it's the advice you are given when you're meditating. It's the advice I was given when I went through coaching certification.
Mm-hmm.
If I recognize that I'm not engaging in the habit of being present and just focusing on my breathing or focusing on what the client
Mm-hmm.
is saying, there is a habit. The habit is acknowledge it and get right back to what you're supposed to be doing. You just say, you know, you don't beat yourself up. You don't spend a lot of time thinking about, I missed out on XYZ. I need to do this for the future. You just get right back into, okay, time to do the habit again. Let me be present. So
Mm-hmm.
that works for just about any habit that you're going to do. Just
Oh,
acknowledge it and move back into it.
yeah, and I'm all for, you know, just beating yourself up, you know, and wallowing in
Really
your.
good at that.
Yeah, I'm gonna beat myself up. I'm gonna waller in it. You know, I'm gonna, you know, be pitiful. Uh, but there needs to be a timeline on it. Yeah, there needs to be a deadline for how long I'm going to, you know, yeah, that was dumb, man. I did that. Yeah, I messed that, dropped that one. Yeah, missed it by a mile. Okay, it's over. Right, back to being a goldfish. Forget about that one. The next person I talk to, the next workshop I do, isn't going to know how the last one went.
That's right. That's great stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and one more quote from James Clear. He says, "Do something today that your future self will be thankful for."
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Do something today that your future self will be thankful for. So yeah, you're not going to see the big return today, but at some point your future self will look back and go, "Glad I started that."
It's like peer pressure on yourself, like, man, future me is going to be so disappointed.
Yeah. That exercise where you write a note to your future self. "Hey, I hope we're still working out every day." Me. Just thinking about, what are those habits, activities, and you know what they are. Everybody knows the things that they're supposed to be doing, whether it's in their personal life, at work, or socially, whatever it might be, and see if we can get into a habit, put it on the calendar, get into a habit, knowing that the outcomes will be there. Right, the end will be worth it.
The opposite of the road to hell, right?
Yep.
Instead of good intentions, let's just keep putting one foot in front of the other and doing that habit.
Yep. Just go do something.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, I think that's where we should turn it over to, frankly, our habit. Our guilty pleasure. I'd say guilty pleasure if I felt guilty about it. Listening to Mr. John Wolf take us home. Take us home, Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf.
So go ahead and tweet that, or share it any other way you want. As always, there are no rights reserved, no trademarks, no copyrights. Share it if you want to. And join us next time on It Doesn't Take a Genius.
That's good enough.